Okay. Well, my name is Matt Swanston. I'm the owner and executive chef of Gooey and Company, crafting gooey butter cakes in New York City, and I'm a self-trained baker. I did not go to culinary school.
Okay, but you trained under you did get some training, so let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I was a server at Jonathan Waxman's restaurant Barbudo in the West Village, and many other restaurants in New York City. And I feel like I definitely have taken a lot of inspiration from the chefs that I've worked with. You know, we taste everything that's on the menu, and Jonathan himself did mentor me to some extent and sit down with me a few times and talk about getting my business started and what the best thing to do was. And most of his advice had more to do with running the business, not necessarily how to cook.
So how do you feel about competing against other pastry chefs?
Um, I think life is about doing things that scare you a little bit, and I think that I'm really excited to jump in there and show them what I got, because I think sometimes it's not about who trained you or what necessarily like hard book knowledge you have. It's about how to attack the challenge and put yourself into it and do it as best as you can. And at the end of the day, I mean, there wasn't really a from scratch recipe for gooey butter cake, so I made it a challenge to create my own and trial and error.
Yeah. Now with the basics, we did mention in the application the baked Alaska.
Yeah.
Now have you done that? Or lie and
I,
say you have, and
I
how
have
do you do it?
I have never made a baked Alaskan, and I've looked since we've discussed it on Saturday. You'd mentioned baked Alaskan, and I've definitely done a little bit of research. I haven't 100% done all the homework, but as I said in my little questionnaire there, that she looks like a tricky bitch, but I'm ready to attack it.
Okay. Now what do you think it takes to make a great baker?
I think that you need to take your own creativity and ideas, and also draw inspiration from the classics. I think we're not trying to reinvent dessert completely, but you are trying to take things people already know or are familiar with and try to recreate them and give them to people in a way that they haven't tasted before. One of the things I've said at the booth is I tell people are like, these gooey cakes are addictive. And I tell them, well, it's like I started realizing quickly when I started the company that sugar is molecularly not too far off from cocaine, and people want it. And I think the reason why they come back is that they get the sugar fix that they crave all the time, but they're getting it in a flavor or a way that they've never tasted it before. And so their brain gets the fix, but then they get it something else that they can't really necessarily put their mind around. And I think it's our job as chefs to give people something that they are familiar with, but to plate it and find a way to make it unique in and of itself, so that there's something new to every experience. And I think that's our job as bakers, is and chefs. So we have to kind of stay within the realm of what people sort of know, but push the boundaries a little bit, and just enough so that they get something new and exciting every time.
So what would you say thus far is your greatest culinary accomplishment?
Coming up with my own recipe for gooey butter cake and making it from scratch. I mean, my mom's recipe and every recipe you see online for it involves cake mix and margarine and Philly cream cheese, corn syrup. I definitely didn't want to use those ingredients. I wanted to stick to something that I felt was more natural, nothing processed. And in the process of trying to come up with a from scratch recipe, I had a lot of failures. And it's a 2-layer cake. If the bottom layer is too dense, the topping doesn't sink into it. You end up with 2 separate layers that just fall apart from each other. If you make the bottom layer too soft, the top layer falls right through it, and it's just a mess, and it's gushy. You don't want gushy butter cake. You want gooey butter cake. And it took the right amount of sort of chemistry and working with it to get it where the top layer sinks in just enough, but you still get fluffy cake underneath it. And when I finally got the right one down, about a year and a half, 2 years into working on it, I knew that I'd sort of reached it. And then when I made my 4th of our 4 classic flavors, which is the banana, the first time I did it, I got it right. And I knew then that I'd learned something in all my trials and errors that I did with the first cake that took me so long to figure out. And I know that when it comes to a baked Alaskan, I'm not going to have 2 years to get it figured out. So